Injustice. In our world, there is so much stuff that isn't fair. People all over the world are treated worse than they deserve by other people, and that just isn't right, is it? Previously, the other week, we remembered how all human beings are created by God in his image, valued, valuable, given dignity, loved, cared for, and created to flourish. Every life is sacred. Every life is highly important. Everyone is loved and created by God. Yet in our world, don't we see so many things going on? We see racism, people targeted and treated differently because of the colour of their skin, or because of their language being different, or their religion being different. We see slavery. Even now, 40.3 million people are enslaved in our world, and that's more than there has been at any time in history, and that happens in the UK as well. Poverty. You look around the world and humans are lacking housing, accessing clean water, and they can't access food. That's just the basics that people need for life. And that's just 3 examples. Think about bullying, you think of ageism, sexism, persecution, issues with the unborn as well, unethical pay, stereotypes, so many other examples where people are being denied dignity and people aren't being treated according to their God-given value. And there are so many more examples as well. I wonder which ones you can think of. But that's happening all around the world. Injustice happens all around the world. And it happens right here on our doorstep. And doesn't that just unsettle you a little bit? Doesn't that make you feel a bit uncomfortable? And also, doesn't it make you want change? Because actually God cares a lot about justice. And God's heart burns for justice. In Proverbs 31 verse 8 to 9 it says, "Speak up for those who can't speak for themselves. Ensure justice for those being crushed. Yes, speak up for the poor and the helpless, and see that they get justice." And then in Isaiah chapter 1 verse 17, "Learn to do good, seek justice, help the oppressed, defend the cause of orphans, fight for the rights of widows," people who can't stand up for themselves, people who couldn't help themselves back then. And as Christians, so it's our duty to stand up and speak out against injustice, to defend people who are oppressed, who are marginalised, who are trampled on in society, and to speak out where dignity is denied, where people have no voice, where there are voiceless people and there are helpless people, hopeless people, and people who aren't being treated with the dignity and respect they deserve. So why don't you use your voice to get in the way of injustice? Why don't you use your influence to get in the way of injustice and unfairness? Stand up, speak up passionately for every single person. Why not think about how you can do that? And why don't we open up as a conversation as a youth group about this as well? Because it's so important. How can we get stuck in? And then one last thing as well, just to really challenge us, which is so important. But have you ever thought about injustice against God? I hadn't thought about this before, but injustice against God. How much do human beings, including you and me, treat God as far less than he actually deserves? Like, he's not an add-on in our lives, he's the core, he's the centre of the universe. He's and everything in it, whether we recognise him or not. He's bigger, he's greater, he's more powerful, more amazing than we could ever imagine. He's the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, yet people couldn't care less about him. People belittle him, people mock him. We treat him sometimes as if he's not even there. We keep on sinning. We don't give him what he deserves. Yet worship is about giving God what he is worth, not just singing 4 or 5 songs on a Sunday morning. It's about giving him all that we are, our whole lives. So why don't you use your life to get in the way of injustice? Why don't you give God all that you are, worship him with all that you are? We say, let's give God our lives, commit our lives to Jesus. And actually, I think the more that we value God, the more that we'll value people, every single life. Because out of the overflow of our hearts, that's when we'll get in the way of injustice.